Viewfinder. Image.
Hello everybody. So today we're going to be talking about grievance procedures. So typically a grievance is a claim that an employer is affected by the misunderstanding of a company policy or a collective bargaining agreement. So grievances are typically solved with a grievance procedure. That's how grievances are typically addressed. So a grievance procedure is many internal solutions in which a grievance can be solved. So grievance procedures are different from employer to employer. So not every single grievance procedure is exactly the same. And also, grievance procedures are different when it comes to various collective bargaining agreements. Even though grievance procedures are different when it comes to different employers and different collective bargaining procedures, there are things that most grievance procedures have in common, such as like the steps that have to be taken and other things as well. So before we even get to the first step, there are some things that we can do before we even get that far. So there will have to be a code of conduct. So when an employer is applying for a job, there should be a code of conduct, so that way the employer knows exactly what is expected of them and they have to read it and agree to it. Also, if there's any accusations being made, they need to be stopped quickly before any grievances take place. Okay, so the first step in the grievance procedure, if it gets this far, the first step is typically brought to the employer's immediate supervisor. So this is like the employer's immediate boss, the person that the employer reports to directly, their immediate supervisor. So this could be informal, or this could be the beginning of the formal process. So in this step, typically what happens is the supervisor and a union representative will talk it over, and the grievance is submitted in writing. It has to be submitted in writing via a grievance form, and it has to be submitted within a certain time frame. So when the grievance is submitted, it is reviewed by the employer's supervisor and a union representative, and they will talk it over and they will review it and they will determine whether or not the grievance is valid. So from here, there are a few things that can happen. Either they will talk and determine that the grievance is invalid, the grievance will be resolved, or it can be resolved, or lastly, the grievance may not be resolved exactly how the employer wants it to be solved, so then it would have to move forward to the next step. So the next step from here, the grievance is brought to higher level supervisors. So when we talk about higher level supervisors, we talk about supervisors who are above the employer's direct supervisor, their immediate supervisor. So these are people right above them. So typically what happens here is there's a review process where the employers, the higher level supervisor and the union representative will talk. And the employer is represented in the union. They're represented by the union, but the employer is not present. They're just represented, but they're not present. So from here, if the grievance isn't solved, then it will have to go to the next step. So the next step involves the grievance to be reviewed by higher level management and possibly higher level union representatives. So higher level management is like the top managers of the company. So at this point, the union may reach the highest levels that are set by a contract. So if the grievance still isn't solved at this point, then arbitration may be necessary. So arbitration is when an outsider, typically a third party, is brought in to help solve the union, or not the union, the grievance. So they're brought in to help solve the grievance because all else failed. So arbitration, it typically involves senior leaders from both parties, or both sides. So both parties, both sides. So the point of the grievance procedure is to help employees solve grievances correctly. So that way it doesn't get out of hand. Because if the grievance is solved correctly, then we can avoid other steps, such as litigation, which is serious. So we want to make sure that we avoid that. So the point of the grievance procedure is to help solve things like that. So I hope everybody enjoyed listening to this, and I hope that you learned something from this. And as far as the website I use for my reference, it is a website called shrm.org, and I will leave the full website in the description box down below in case anybody wants to look at the website. And I hope you all enjoy this presentation, and thank you all very much for listening, and have a very good rest of your day.